Hi guys, Shannon here. I thought I would discuss with you guys today over, say, a cup of coffee. So grab yourself a cup of coffee or some water. I've got my water here. And because people have asked me some questions about, my accident and how I got through it and how I came around to how I am back today. So I thought we would just, I would tell you my story first, because, we all go through things in life that are difficult and we, have a hard time getting up from. And so, whether it's my story or somebody else's story, somebody always has something that's, happened to them in their lives, and, life isn't perfect. So, I was just thankful that I was able to bring myself back around to not, everything that I was, but, pretty close. So I thought, okay, well, let's just bring a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, some water, whatever, and sit down and let's have a chat. Okay, so about 6 years ago, it was on March 2nd. I just finished work, and I worked on horses. I worked as a podiatrist, which I spent years training for. And prior to that, I was an environmental science officer for a conservation authority for many, many, many years, which I went to school for. And but I switched careers and took my passion of horses and love for animals into a career that I enjoyed. It was hard work, very hard work physically, but I enjoyed being able to help and fix problems and issues and different things related to the horse's feet. So, and that all came about, to be honest with you, because my one horse got injured by a farrier, and so I took matters in my own hands and decided to retrain and to learn and figure out the anatomy of the foot of the horse. Anyways, so I had been working that day, and I just sold my farm, about a month or two prior. And I was in the midst of looking for a different property. So my horses were at friends of mine, and because they had some horses and they had space. So I had, a bunch of horses, and 3 of them were stallions, were very well behaved guys. Anyways, I was going in to feed them, which is fine. Everything was fine. They're all eating, and there was 3 of them together, and they got along just nicely. So I just happened to be putting out some hay and doing different things, and it had a bit of a hill. And I was up on the top of the hill, and I just happened to be picking up their feed buckets because they're all through. But there was one horse, another horse, and then another horse in front of each other. And I was still a good distance away, but the unfortunate part is, as you know, or maybe some people don't know, with horses, they kind of remind me of deer, to be honest with you, that they're, it's all about survival, and they spook really easy. And spook means is that they quickly get scared, and they'll take off just like a deer would, and then stop a little while down the road or space to see if the danger has passed. So what happened was that something somewhere in this particular paddock had frightened them. It's a bit windy, etc., etc. But at that split second that this happened, I actually had been bent over, and I was picking up the front guy's feed bucket. So everybody, one takes off, and then the guy in front, he kind of does a quick look behind to see, what the heck is going on and what we're running from. But they run first before they, assess the situation. So he takes off running, and I just happen to be in his way, right? Horses typically will not run you down. They try to avoid you, right? Because they don't want to get injured. They don't want to hurt you. They're not aggressive, etc. So he takes off running, like they all three ran and like literally bolted quickly, and I said I would just happen to be in his way. So I unfortunately got run down and or run over, all the, whatever you want to call it, but all the above. And what happened was that I was unconscious, and next thing I know, I'm like slowly pulling myself off the ground, and I knew, like, geez, something wasn't right, because I didn't feel good at all. And the friends that I was keeping my horses at, they have a huge property. Anyways, he had just dropped his wife off in a city, and she was flying to meet some friends, and anyways, to enjoy some little festival or whatever. So he just happened to come back. So I'm not sure, he came out to the field to see how I was doing, because he saw my vehicle there and stuff. So I'm not sure if the horses actually got frightened by him, kind of walking up behind them, or what the deal was. But nonetheless, next thing I know, I glanced up, and I didn't recognize this person, and it was this friend of mine, and I could see the look on his face was sheer terror. And anyways, he reached down as I was getting up, and he literally grabbed, which of course I didn't know, but grabbed my face, and his hand was on my face. And you know, I've had some challenges in my life, and you know, I'm not one for a lot of people in my personal space. So the first thing I said to him was, "Get your bleep 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 bleep, you know, hands off my face." And his response back to me was, "Absolutely not." And of course, I didn't know what was going on. Like I could tell that, again, I didn't feel very good, but I didn't know the extent of the injuries. And anyways, so he had grabbed my face, and I remember kind of glancing down, and he picked me up, and he carried me to what's called the Bobcat, and placed me in the Bobcat, and grabbed some towels and wrapped towels around my head, and I did look down, and I saw blood everywhere, and I thought, I must have got a little cut. Well, at that point in time, you know, again, I'm still looking at this person who's my friend, and I'm not really realizing who he is or what's going on. Basically, one, because of the damage that was done, but obviously I was in shock too. So next thing I know, we are driving towards this house, obviously their house. No idea what's going on or where I'm going, or I didn't recognize anything. And I felt very tired. I just wanted to sleep. And so he gets me to the house, and he disappears, and he comes back, which felt like forever, and I see all this blood gushing everywhere. And the house cleaner, who I actually know, was there, and she's screaming because her husband's a firefighter, and the neighbor actually was a retired police officer. So the problem with sometimes living in certain parts of the country, and literally not in the country, but in the country, is that, you know, an ambulance takes a while to actually get to you. So he had called the neighbor, and he was a military person, so he was used to traumas and different things. But I have to say that he was running around like a person with his head cut off, doesn't know what to do. So I was really shocked, and I could see that this person was crying, and I thought, I wonder why he's crying. But anyways, I then get put into another vehicle because the ambulance couldn't get there in time, and for the amount of blood and that I was losing, they were obviously quite afraid. So I was in this other vehicle, and they were driving like through these country roads like you would not believe. Just like crazy people. And I'm looking down and I'm bleeding and bleeding, and all I could think of is like, gosh, I'm bleeding all over this person's car. And I must have said that out loud, because they said, no, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. So what felt like forever and a day, and of course I didn't recognize who they were, and I didn't know what was going on. I finally get to the hospital, and they get me into the emergency quickly. And to be honest with you, if they hadn't have done that, and I had to wait for the ambulance to come all the way there and then get all the way back, I don't know whether or not I would have lived. So I'm very thankful for people sacrificing their brand new vehicle, matter of fact, and everything that they did to try to save me. So I get to a hospital, first hospital, and they take me in right away, and they start irrigating, and I'm thinking, irrigating? That sounds like, like landscaping. Irrigating my face to get out all the dirt and everything else. And the reason being was because, and I don't know if you can actually see, but you can see a scar here, and it goes all the way back. So what happened was, I guess the horse had pushed me down, and one of the feet had, the hoofs had hit here, and literally when the horse was taking off, stepped, crushed the skull in, and peeled all the tissue, all my nerves, everything was severed, and opened my face up right to the skull. So I couldn't feel anything because all my nerves were severed. And that's one thing out of many that was wrong with me. And so they're quickly irrigating my face, and I'm watching all these doctors around me, and again I'm in shock, and they're putting IVs in, and they're doing this, but they have to get my jacket off and that I had on. And I was really upset because to be honest with you, it was a really good Carhartt coat. If you're a farm person, you understand a Carhartt, like, especially for women, they're hard to come by. So I was quite upset about this. They were going to cut this off. Anyways, they got my clothes off to find that I also had my wrist busted in half, and you can see some of the scarring here. And I got plates in my arms and pins, but it was broken and through the skin. And so of course then panic set in even more, because they're trying to figure out what else is wrong with this woman. Anyways, so they were cleaning out my face and numbing it, and not that I could feel anything anyways, but that took a while. And of course their initial job was to patch me back together quickly if they could. They weren't too worried about whether or not nerves were severed or anything. And then so that literally it felt like forever. And I was awake and aware, but not aware of what happened, not aware of who I was, not aware of anything else. And but I had, I was coming in and going out in consciousness, and I was still breathing. It felt like struggling to breathe, but I was still breathing okay. And so they had to stop, obviously, the blood loss. And they did say that if my friend hadn't shown up and he was still, dropping his wife off for another hour or two, I probably would have died. So I'm very thankful that, in timing wise, that he was able to get back and find me there. Anyway, so they sutured and sutured and sutured and stapled and shaved and did all these things, and but they couldn't do orthopedic stuff. So they did do some x-rays because I was having problems moving my neck, and find out that I had a broken neck in 2 places. They did do a CAT scan. I had 2 bleeds in the brain, and of course this side was kind of all shoved in. And the one thing that people don't realize is that, especially with the skull, right? So unless you've had an injury, you don't, especially for the head anyways, you don't realize that, your skull is made up with so many different parts, right? And they have like these, like when you're little, right? They say, oh, your skull hasn't formed together yet, and that's true, it hasn't. But even when it's now come together in pieces and the sutures, bind, they actually still move, and they're still flexible, and they can jump each other, and they can do different things. So once your skull has been basically damaged or altered in some sort of way, even a punch to the head will alter how your piece of your skull may sit with the other piece. Like your frontal bone here may jump. You just never know, like, what happens. And it happens in horses too all the time. And you can actually have an osteopath go in and put the part of that skull back to where it needs to be. So nonetheless, so they had to piece me back together and keep me stable. And then what they did, after doing all these tests and finding out there was a lot more wrong with me than they initially thought, they sent me to another hospital about an hour away, because this was just a small little community hospital. And but I'm very thankful that the surgeon that was, the emergency surgeon that was there was very, very, very good. He's from Australia, but anyways, he was very good. So they then send me off to this other larger hospital, teaching hospital, and larger facilities, emergencies, etc. And I remember laying, because it was so busy, I was on the stretcher, and I'm laying there, and I remember this woman across from me, and she's talking to some other woman that was waiting for an emergency, and she she was talking about horses. I'm like, I can fix your horse's feet if they have a problem. And she's looking at me, she's like, I think you need to be fixing yourself right now. So I don't even remember that, but apparently that's what happened. I was trying to gain business even while I was like beat up to a pulp. So then they took me up, and they did some more testing and blood work and stuff, and they had to get the orthopedic surgeons in to piece me back together. Neurologists, they couldn't do anything, because they said things need to heal first before they went in and tried to see if they could reattach my nerves in my face, because if not, then other things, muscles deteriorate and they atrophy, and different things happen within the face. So well, now, because my face is all swollen and my neck's swollen and all these things, the anesthesiologist wasn't even sure whether or not they could use a trachea to actually put me under. So they tried, and I remember laying there, and again, you don't know what's happening, but you know what's happening. And I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, my God, what's going on? And they tried to freeze at least my arm, so they didn't, because they didn't want to put the trachea in, and nope, it wouldn't freeze. So she said, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. And not that I knew what was going on anyways, to be honest with you. So next thing you know, I'm out, and when I wake up, literally it was like the next day, I was awake, I was still groggy. My arm's in a cast, I've got stitches and staples in my face, my neck's in a big old bind, and things weren't good. But I didn't know who I was. I was slurring my speech. At least I was awake, but not really knowing what was going on. And that's basically where I stayed for a couple weeks. They were monitoring, especially because of the bleeds in the brain, of what was going on, and whether or not I was going to have a stroke or going to make it or not. And so from there, I ended up going, because the unfortunate part is that I didn't have family around. They're not where I was living, in the country I was living, and so there was nobody to help me but me, myself, and I. And if it wasn't for the place where I actually had the horses, the two friends there, they took me in for a little bit to try to help me out, and it was difficult because that wasn't something that they needed to be able to have to go through. Anyways, so I did go and stay, and again, I did not know really who I was. I was still slurring my speech. I didn't even know one of the friends. I would look at her and I'm thinking I recognized her face, but you think I could put a name to the face? I couldn't for the life of me. So, and of course, in pain and all the rest of it, and discomfort still. So I went to doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor. After I got home, you know, I'm in crutches, I'm doing things myself. I had to look after myself, and basically they told me to sit in a dark room, don't read, don't watch TV, don't look at a computer, don't. Okay. But honestly, that's one of the worst things that you could actually do is just exist. Okay, you do need some stimulus. You do need to start retraining. It's no different than if you had, like, say, a stroke, and what do? They want to reteach you and want to get those neurons connecting again, to help you. But no, that's not what they told me, and they basically wrote me off, that I'd be like a useless piece of society. And that was really hard because, you know, I always prided myself in trying my best and being smart and capable of pretty much anything that I'd put my mind to. So, but I was cognizant enough and aware enough that what they were saying to me didn't make logical sense. And so I started to do my own therapy. Not only for my hand, my wrist, neck, for my mind, and it was difficult because I did not know what I was doing. You know, yes, I have a science background, and yes, I have some logical skills, but you can't put two and two together. It's very, very difficult when you've had a traumatic brain injury. And, you know, especially with the bleeds. So I had to push myself, and every day I would wake up and I would try to do something, even if it was for 5 minutes. I would do something to try to move forward with becoming me again, whatever me was, right? Because I didn't even remember what me was. So after a while, I thought, okay, well, I'm starting to get better. I understand now what's happened. I understand that I'm not functioning the same. I had a hard time with memory. Memory loss was horrible because I couldn't remember a lot of things, especially, you know, short-term memory. I would try to read something, and oh my God, you know, like, I didn't even finish the paragraph and I already forgot what the first part was. And, you know, this still unfortunately does continue today. I have to read things, you know, 5 times before it actually sticks now. Where before, no, you know, I'd read it and just, like, you know, most people, you read it and you're like, okay, now I remember, but now, no. So I then decided, okay, well, I needed to do something, and because now my body was changing. You know, yes, the casts are off, and yes, you kind of look normal. You're upright, you're walking, you're somewhat talking, but you're just not the same. You're really not the same. So, you know, not only am I having you know, memory losses, I'm having emotional issues. I don't feel the same inside as I did before. And again, you know, people don't understand is that your brain changes, right? When it gets damaged, it's like, you've got major hematomas or bruising, if you're lucky, just bruising in your brain, but damage to the vascular system, which is the blood flow in your brain. And then what happens is that if the blood flow isn't maintained or restored, that it deteriorates, and it atrophies and parts of your brain shrinks, and it's harder, like you just lose all abilities in that area, which then results in cognitive abilities like learning and speech and emotion, depending on which part of the brain was damaged, emotion and whether it's post stress disorders or anxiety or all these other things, which I had PTSD. That same coat that I was able to piece back together that they saved, I put it on, and oh my God, it was like a trigger. I wouldn't have thought it, but as soon as I put the coat on to try to go for a little walk, I'd start throwing up. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? But I soon realized it was my mind's way of associating this coat with what happened. And anxiety became a huge part of my daily life thereafter, and stress about even going around people or animals or anything. And nonetheless, is that, so here we are, and I'm staring at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, okay, I recognize who and what is looking back at me, but I could not connect emotionally to this person. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know what was expected of me. I actually didn't know me. And that was very upsetting, because I felt very lost, because again, not having any family and it was just me, the one thing that you at least can fall back on is that you know yourself. But now I was completely alone, because I didn't know even who this person was staring at me, and to be frankly honest with you, I didn't like her. I was very emotional, again, stressing all the time, high anxiety where I'd start hyperventilating, different things. And then what I was finding is that aggression was kicking in. So somebody would say something or do something, even on the phone, and I would become so like angry, which wasn't like me at all. Angry to the point where you think, you just want to stab them to death with a pitchfork. But I meant it. Like, I literally meant harm. And, but I was at least lucky enough, like even before my accident, very good at analyzing myself, or being self-aware of behaviors and whatnot. And this actually did follow through with me after the accident. So I would stop after I calmed down and think, okay, well, why am I doing this? Why did I feel this way? And that allowed me to help myself and heal and get better control of what was going on. But I'll tell you is that and you see even in the news where, if the police are having a problem with somebody, I think there was a gentleman who got stopped and unfortunately got killed because of anger issues, but it's because he had a traumatic brain injury. And once you hit this emotional point, and it's quick, and you don't even realize that you're there, with this surge of anger, it's all of a sudden like you can't control it. And I could see why somebody would hurt somebody, because it's just like a primal sort of feeling that you just can't control. And I would become very upset and very violent, and until there was something that would trigger you to stop, or be able to calm down. And so this was an unbelievable thing to me. And people still see you walking around, and you still somewhat look the same. Like, my face has changed somewhat. You can see this side is a little puffier. It still has some interesting enough, still swelling in it from even, a handful of years ago. My teeth changed. This started to push over. So this whole part of the skull and eye and everything changed. But one thing that I should also back up and mention was that, when they gave me a bunch of medication to go home with, boy, if you're the people around you and the doctors and whatnot aren't on the ball, this could cause a lot more problems for you. So one of the issues all of a sudden that I had was a neurological issue, and this was, I guess, just about a week after I got home from the hospital, where all of a sudden I woke up one day and everything was good, and then I started having like these my abdomen was sore, like I'd gone to the gym. You get that like the second day feeling, like you're like, oh, I worked out way too hard. Well, I had that feeling. I thought, oh, that's weird, I don't know what I did. And then it started to spread, and it went down all across my abdomen, it went down my arms, it went everywhere, and it started to hurt so bad that even to lift my arms, say to put a shirt on or whatever, I couldn't do. It was excruciating pain. Excruciating. It's like all of a sudden your nervous system went on fire, and it was angry. Probably because of, maybe something that happened in the neck. Anyways, it was angry. And I've never in my life, even the accident, it was, yes, it hurt and whatnot, but having this particular situation was unbelievable. And I like to think I'm fairly, tough, and I have a strong constitution for pain, but shoo-wee, this was brutal. So of course I ended up going to emergency for that, and the attending physician there gave me a bunch of medication to calm my system down. Anyways, so I had that filled and thought nothing of it, right? And it worked. It took away the pain or whatever, but the unfortunate part also, what happened is that they had given me one of the medications, but I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but the dosage was too high, and one of the side effects is that it can actually affect your eyesight. So I went from, also with the head injury and all this other stuff, from 20/20 vision to like literally I can't see a darn thing. Like my vision changed just like that. So it just seemed like everything was kind of going against me. But nonetheless, so things were changing. Emotionally was brutal. Obviously I didn't want to do my job anymore. Even though I had to, I was afraid to go near horses. I would start hyperventilating. I didn't want to go near people. I just literally, honestly, didn't want to even get out of bed. I wanted to crawl up or crawl under the bed and stay there forever. And to be honest with you, for the longest time, I actually contemplated, suicide, because I couldn't deal with what was happening to me, being alone, no support, no understanding from the doctors, because like I said, my body was changing also. Is like, it's bad enough having the injury, but stuff just keeps happening and happening. So I went from, 110 to 15 pounds to literally 170 like this. And I prior to the accident, I was going to the gym, 6 days a week. I ate healthy, from fresh salads to chicken to, yeah, sure, I loved, potato chips. But, I didn't smoke, I didn't take drugs, I didn't do all these things. And so why am I gaining weight? Like, this made no sense. Why am I having all these problems? Why can't I concentrate? Why am I having anger issues? Why? And I got a lot of shrugging of the shoulders from physicians, and they said, well, I don't know, here's some medication, for your brain. Here's some depression medication. Here's some anti-anxiety medication. Here's this. Well, geez, if anybody knows anything about this medication, it doesn't help your brain at all, right? it actually makes it worse. So, and then you got weight gain coupled with that, with this medication. And their opinion for my weight gain was stop eating. Yeah, they checked my thyroid and, blah, 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 did your basic testing and, thought I was basically, just complaining, I guess, or didn't believe me or whatever. And so yeah, stop eating. Anyways, so that was the time where I'm like, okay, Shannon, this stuff needs to change. It needs to change, and nobody else is going to help you. So what did Shannon do? I had to figure this all out medically, and I'm glad that prior to this I had, some science background and stuff. Not that I remembered much, but at least it was an interest for me, and medicine was an interest for me, and anatomy and stuff. So I actually took a risk, and I signed myself up for a osteopathic program for horses. Not humans, just because I understood horses more than I did humans. And I thought, okay, well, this is a good start. So I did that, and it took, 4.5 years to go through this program, and it was brutal. Not only is the program itself normally hard, but of course, I did it with a school in Europe, and they're known to be, the best school possible for osteopathic stuff for horses and dogs. And anyways, and that's because I liked horses and dogs better than humans, but nonetheless, so I struggled, man. Oh boy, did I struggle, because I couldn't remember anything. I would have to sit, there was a lot of stuff that you had to sketch out, that's on the board, and write, and you weren't allowed to, audio tape it or whatever. And I was struggling huge because my memory wasn't very good. So anyways, it took a lot. Like, these classes, honestly, they were, from 8 o'clock in the morning till, 7 o'clock at night. Then you had to study, and then you had to eat, and then you had to study some more, and it was tough. But nonetheless, I did get through that. And at that point in time, started applying everything, obviously, that I was learning about horses, because they would also touch on human related stuff, human things, to help myself first and foremost. And started working on I did some work on some horses, but it was really mainly to try to help myself. And at that point, I thought, okay, well, you need to start exercising. You need to start getting your body moving again. So that's what I started to do. I started to exercise. I started to look at the food that I was eating. I started to look at the different parts of my brain that weren't functioning or that had been damaged. And one of the parts was the pituitary, right? So when you've got the pituitary, you've got a brain issue, and it'll cause stomach issues, and it'll cause liver issues, and digestive issues. So I had to understand the different parts of the brain, and how I could work with what was damaged, and adapt my eating, adapt my physical fitness to that. Excuse me. So the other thing I then did was started to do some research on the different medications or supplements relating to the brain and the vascular system, and how this could ultimately improve how my brain was functioning. And because honestly, the accident was one thing, but as time went on and months went on, and et cetera, the brain was having like it was getting worse. And people don't realize that. They think, oh, you're healing, so you're getting better. It actually gets worse. So, and then once the brain starts getting worse, of course the body starts getting worse too, and starts going, sideways on you. So I had to start figuring out how I could open up the vascular system, start healing the brain, even though it'd been a while now and the damage was done. So I would do is literally I research and research and research and find one particular supplement that or organic thing like mushrooms or different things that would help, and I would try it. I figured I had nothing else to lose, so I used myself as a guinea pig on these things, and I tried probably 30 different things, if not more. It was over 30, to see what would work. And sometimes I would get these like zapping feelings in the brain. I think, ooh, I'm not sure if that was good or that wasn't good. But it wasn't about, like, it would make me feel better, but I would start to have a little bit better memory. My emotions started to calm down, and I could regain control of these outbursts of wanting to really hurt something or somebody. And but it took a long time for me to sift through the vast array of supplements that are actually out there and see if they work. So again, I concentrated mainly on the vascular system in the brain, making sure that I was hydrated, because the brain needs water. It is 80% water. It needs a lot of water. So if you are dehydrated, guaranteed, and this is why you get like your headaches when you're dehydrated, because it's dehydrating the brain and it's shrinking the brain, right? It's just like a little prune. But people also mostly don't realize, because they look and they see like medical things on TV or shows, and they think the brain's like solid. Well, it's not. It's almost like soft butter, to be honest with you. If you put a fresh brain in your hand, it literally would start like custard. It would start to like seep through your fingers. It's very, very soft. And another thing people don't realize, like for like head injuries and stuff, shoo-wee, like a human brain doesn't actually like seal itself and form completely. For a woman, a girl, it's around 25 years of age, and for a guy, it's usually 28. So can you think of all, like, these young kids in sports and hitting their head with a soccer ball or in football, or something happens and they're banging their brains around? Well, when you've got something that's not completely formed and sealed, and it's like custard, and it's encapsulated in this hard, bony structure, well, like, things are not going to go well, right? And excuse me, need to get some water. We wonder, you think, oh geez, why has little Johnny's personality's changed after 3 concussions? Well, that's because Johnny's not the same, to be honest with you. So we are doing this to ourselves. And so anyways, I tried all these different supplements, and I actually found a formula, or a bunch of them, that in combination really helped the vascular system within my brain. Plus, again, like I said, hydration, drinking lots of water. People say, oh, well, I can't drink lots of water because I have to pee all the time. Well, let's give you an example, just touching base a little on that, is that if you are dehydrated, think of it like this. Let's use nature, okay? So in nature, if you've had a drought, right? No water. You've had a drought. The ground gets really, really dry, right? And you can see it cracking and different things. So it's really, really dry. And then all of a sudden, You know, say a rain comes along and opens up. Well, because the ground's so dry, what happens is the water just kind of like runs off, right? And creates flooding and different things. So now let's go back to the human body. Think of it the same way, is that when you haven't got enough water in your body to make sure that everything is hydrated, your organs and everything inside are like that dry ground, right? The water's going to run off and you're going to pee it right out. Period. Point. Right? So eventually, just like in nature, if it rains and rains and rains, the soil starts to soften, it starts to absorb, etc., etc. Same with your body, you know, and your organs. It'll start to absorb. So the more you drink and often you drink, the more it starts to absorb and starts to regulate and become better, which then in turn helps your brain. Now we also have, food. Exercise is good too. You need to keep moving, and it stimulates, happiness and good things in the brain. We can go into details of that some other time. But food is very, very critical, not only for your brain-gut connection, because they are connected, right? But your whole digestive system. And if your brain's not functioning properly because of an accident, now you're eating crappy foods, well, you can't expect to all of a sudden, make great thoughts or not have emotional problems or not have ADHD or have all these other vast array of things that are going to go on in your brain. You want to make sure the food that you are putting into your mouth and putting into your body are going to be the best thing possible for not only like your other organs and weight and stuff, but for your brain, right? And if you don't have that, well, then you can't expect to be running on peak performance, right? Again, I always say about if you use the fuel that has all this water in it, you're not going to get too far, and that's pretty much what happens in your body, right? When you look around today, and we've got so many emotional issues and so many behavioral things and just depression. Well, geez, if you're eating McDonald's and you're eating all these processed foods and all these things, of course, how do you expect that you're going to behave or you're going to feel? Because your body doesn't feel good and your brain's not going to feel good. So, of course, you're going to have depression, and of course, you're going to have all these other things. You can really, honestly, heal yourself with being good to yourself. And that doesn't mean, good to yourself by, I'm going to have a cheat night and have a pizza. No. Your body won't like that. Your body doesn't like that, right? High fat is not good for you. High carbohydrates are not good for you, right? Everything is in moderation. Chemicals, all these things. So that also affect your brain. So if you have a brain injury, you need to have, good hydration. You need to have good food going into your body to give yourself a fighting chance. For goodness sakes, people, to be able to be aware, to make better decisions, to have a better chance at, I don't want to say a better life, but a life or a cognitive ability that you had before. If I hadn't honestly started testing all these supplements and making good choices and understanding all these things, I don't know where I'd be today. I really don't. So here's the thing, and I can help people with understanding these different supplements and what will help. And you need to be able to, when something happens, like even a concussion, that's a hematoma, which is like bruising in your brain, and that's like critical. Like what happens now from even a concussion is going to affect you later in your life, whether that's 5 years down the road, whether that's 45 years down the road, and now all of a sudden, you know, they say, oh, he has Alzheimer's, you know, and it's genetic. No, start looking back to, you know, in their life, and have they hit their head? Have they slipped and fall? Have they hit the brakes on their car, you know, too quickly, or somebody in the passenger seat and your head bounces back and forth? People, oh, whiplash. Well, I'd be more concerned about what happened with the brain inside that bony thing we call the skull. It really is a bad design, to be honest with you. We need bumper pads inside, but nonetheless, is that you need to really take care of the hydration, take care of your nutrients for your brain, because everything that you eat is, 30% of it is needed by the brain in terms of your calories. And in looking at the supplements that are available to people that are going to support these injuries, and preferably if you can get a hold of things that, if you've had a concussion right away, that you can take quickly, that will support quick healing and support the vascular system in there. So anyways, I started doing these, like I said, just started taking supplements and started trying all these things out to see what was going on and what worked or what didn't. I had, literally I'm throwing it to the wind. What do I have to lose? What? I actually get a bit better? 2 thumbs up. Will it make it worse? I highly doubt it. So I would test and see how it felt. And it took a while, because, just because you take something like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, doesn't mean all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm a genius again. I'm like Einstein. No. And a lot of times you can't feel if it's working until you sit back and go, unless you're cognizant about, how you were before and how you are now. Is your memory a bit better? How are you feeling? Do you feel happier? Do you feel more agitated? Do you feel like you can remember things better? Whatever your particular story is. And it's very, very important that people understand what they need to live a better life. And honestly, anybody that's had any sort of bump or bruise or whack to the head, even a punch to the head, that's why I start looking at things. I've looked at things a lot differently since the accident, from football players, and as you know, with what's going on with the football players, that from concussion to concussion, and then all of a sudden they retire and they're having emotional problems, they're having aggression problems, they're committing suicide. There's a lot of things going on, and this stems all from head trauma and the vascular system and things not functioning the same way. But there is hope. Okay, there is hope to turn things around. And again, it may not be 100% of how you were before, but heck, even 50%, 30% is better than nothing, right? So 5% is better than nothing. And so after everything that I've been through on my own, and fighting and standing up and saying, okay, today is not the day to give up. I am a warrior. I dust myself back off, and keep going. And there's still days where you want to pull the covers over your head and say, sorry, world, today is not one of those days. But I force myself now to go to the gym. Even if I did 1 or 2 little things, I go. I force myself to make the bed. I force myself to do the dishes. You've got to, if you feel like you can't, just try to do one thing, just one thing for a step forward in that particular day. And if it's just too much that day, okay, that's fine. But tomorrow, okay, we're gonna make the bed, right? It wouldn't seem like a big deal, but For somebody that's having emotional and mental problems because of brain injuries, that's a big deal. Next day, let's try, doing the bed and one other thing, right? And congratulate yourself. Be proud of yourself for doing that. Because I know what it's like of wanting to give up. I know what it's like to figure, like, why was the world picking on me? The universe is picking on me. Why do these things happen to me? But I could only feel sorry for myself for so long because I had nobody else but me. So I had to literally go, okay, Shannon, get up. Nobody's going to pay your mortgage or your rent. Nobody's going to pay your bills. Nobody's going to pay for your food or anything else that you have. So you have two choices, literally. You either get up and make steps towards being better, make steps towards a better life for yourself. And that doesn't mean better life meaning, having a Lamborghini. No, to be able to, if you want to say be normal, to do the normal things in life that you need to do versus not. And if you're not, it's just going to go further than the trap door. People say you reach rock bottom. Well, there's always further than the rock bottom, especially when you've had a head injury. And trying to understand the people around you, because they won't be able to understand you, right? They don't understand how or what's going on in your brain, how it's functioning, why are you different. And even family members, like I've had the privilege of working with families to help them understand what that person who's had a head injury is going through. Because you can't understand, right? If you don't have a head injury, how do you know how that feels, right? Just like depression. If somebody's never had depression, they can't say, oh, well, I understand how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. And you don't understand why I behave a certain way. And yes, you can read all about it, but, hopefully they're, attentive enough to be able to do that for their family member, or understand why your kid is now, because he's had head trauma, why he's lashing out and he's violent and doing all these things. Try to understand, and then if you understand, maybe then you can work towards how we can make it better for that particular person. And this is a big goal of mine, and I've just because I'm now, like, if people look at me like I'm normal and I'm better and all these things, is that I'm not 100%. No, you can't be 100%. You're never the same person again, period. You cannot relate to that same person. So every day, like I said, I get up, and the things that I don't want to do, I try to push myself to do. And some days I can, some days I don't. What happens now is that I get a lot of headaches, and that's from barometric pressure change. And people say, even with migraines, migraines, but the doctors aren't telling you why you have a migraine, right? It could be a couple different things. But let's say if you've had any sort of concussion, you've had any sort of head injury whatsoever, whether it's traumatic brain injury or otherwise, that's probably why you're having migraines. It could be jaw-related problems, because there's a lot of cause and effect, right? So because of my head injury, because my neck not sitting correctly, made my shoulders, turn, and now they're pushing different parts of my spine, gave me a bit of scoliosis all the way down. My pelvis is off. My right leg is now shorter than the other, and da-da-da-da-da. So cause and effect. So this whole barometric pressure thing, oh my dear Jesus. Oh my good gracious me. Hallelujah on that one. I can tell the weather because of this being crushed in, barometric pressure, it starts to push and push and push. Well, your brain has nowhere to go, so it's now being squeezed. And I can tell the weather better than any meteorologist. I will tell you right now. give me 2 days ahead, and they could say, oh no, there's no rain. And if I've had an excruciating headache to the point where I'm throwing up, I beg to differ. Now, there are places in the world that have very, very small changes in the barometric pressure, which, you know, anybody with a head injury or has problems with this would probably love to live, because then you actually feel normal for a change. But other places, you look this up, you know, because boy, oh boy, there's got to be some relief there for people. So my goal here is to be able to teach people how maybe their family members are feeling first. Second, to help anybody that is going through these type of things and not understanding what is going on with their body, what's going on with their brains, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not here to judge, because I've been here, been in this, you know, spot that you're in, and to hopefully help you understand a little bit more from a physiology point of view to even psychological point of view of what's going on, and maybe how to address it in a different way than, you know, maybe somebody is telling you. And again, if a doctor is telling you do this, this, and this, but they've never had a brain injury, they don't know what it's like. They don't know what it's like. They don't know how you feel. They can't, right? They can't. So there is hope, and that is the one thing that I want to stress, is that there's a lot of hope if you say to yourself, I am not going to let this beat me down. I'm not going to let this take my life. I am going to learn. I'm going to help myself. I'm going to be better for myself, which in turn is going to be better for, you know, the people around me. I'm going to try to teach them and make them understand how I'm feeling or what's going on. And yeah, again, they take a look at you, you're upright, you're walking, you're functioning, you're doing different things, but what's going on inside in the brain is sometimes very, very challenging, very upsetting. They don't understand that you get tired. Like, I get tired really quickly. It's getting better, but tired really quickly. I don't want to do things. Stimulus sometimes in certain movies where things are flashing at me, I feel like, okay, excuse me, I'm going to be sick now. You know, and these things you just have to adapt to and try to work through. Anyways, guys, I've talked your ear off now. Think for probably, let me see, no glasses, so I have to look, for over an hour, and just to try to tell you my story and whatnot. And there's a lot more detail too, but you know, I hope that I can help somebody out there, whether it's the person with the head injury or the family member, try to understand them better. And if I can even help one person with even this particular video, or with a story, or some other information in some of the other videos that I'm going to provide, more of the technical details, that may at least give somebody, you know, 5% better life, or hopefully more, 50% better life, and looking forward to the future, then, you know, I've done my job, because that's what I know I'm here to do, is to help people get through these type of things, and share my experiences, good and bad, because there's both. Let me tell you, there's both. And even dealing with relationships when you've had a brain injury, boy oh boy, whether it's family or whether it's on a personal level, relationships become a whole different ball game, that's for sure. And especially if they've known you beforehand, because you're not the same. And so you just have to, you know, love the person the new person that you are, and get to know that person, and reinvent yourself, and not allow this situation or your situation to totally destroy you. Lots to do, everybody. So let's show the world that we are fighters and we are warriors, brain warriors, and that we can get back up and stand up with our sword and ready to fight for another day. Anyways, I hope all is well, and I love you all, and we'll chat soon. Bye for now. Bye.